So my name is Amy Call. I am the associate pastor at Chapel Hill United Methodist Church in Henderson, Kentucky, and I'm excited. I always like meeting new people with MHE because when I was growing up, we didn't really know very many people, and the people that we did meet along the way through the MHE coalition, they lived hours and hours and hours away. So it was almost on a day-to-day basis, it's like being completely alone, or just being able to ask your dad about this experience. And it was hard. It was really hard. So I love the fact that we're having this in Lexington, which is about an hour from where I grew up. So we found out that I had MHE when I was about 6 months old. The babysitter was rubbing my back and discovered one of my tumors. And that tumor, the first one to be found, was, I don't know how many surgeries in, but it was finally removed when I was a teenager. I have had, like I said, 28-ish surgeries. I'm a little unsure on the number because around surgery number 11 or so, I told my mom, oh, well, I should just stop counting, and there's just been so many. And so I stopped counting for about a couple of years, and now my numbers are off when I tried to start counting again. But when people ask me where I've had surgery, I go here, 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 and here, and now here. And 14 of them were bone tumor removals, where they went in and either removed one or more. And I don't know, it's been a long road. My first surgery was when I was 8. And before then, I just had tumors that you could see, and kids asked questions. But when I was 8, the questions got a little bit different, like why are you using crutches, or why are you using a wheelchair? Why are you using a cane? When I was in middle school and high school, I'm going to take my shoes off. I don't usually preach with shoes. Don't know why I'm trying to talk with them. When I got in middle school and high school, it became different questions. It became like, why are you faking this for attention? Or why is it that you get to sit out for PE? Or why do you have an extra set of books? And there was not the curiosity of children attached to that. There was the meanness of adolescence attached. And it was kind of very hard for me to process that. And I missed a lot of school, so kids were jealous of that, and of the fact that I got to use the school's cranky elevator to go up to some of my classes. That was not really something they should have been envious of. That elevator was scary. Very scary. So part of what I want to talk about today is the effects of we talk a lot about the physical effects of MHE, and there are such serious nature of these physical effects that sometimes we forget about the psychological effects or the social effects. And I was always very close to my sister, and my family was very, very supportive growing up, but still I often felt alone or lonely or misunderstood, or like what I was going through was something so out of the norm that there's no one in this world that was going through exactly the same thing. And I know most teenagers will have thoughts like that, and that as you're growing up, it's hard anyways to be a teenager, but with MHE it made it a little bit different. So when I was in high school, my depression symptoms started getting worse because of this feeling of loneliness and isolation. Plus my pain was getting to be more intense. The more surgeries I had, the more pain it seemed like I was in. That it would be harder to walk because this knee has been operated on 5 times. and this one twice, and my ankle has been operated on, or I only recently found out that I have tumors on my hips that I never knew. I don't know where they came from. But, when pretty soon before one of my Shriners appointments, I had a not very serious suicide attempt, but it was me trying to show that I was very unhappy, and it scared my family. It scared my sister, it scared my parents. So I had a conversation with one of the social workers at Shriners about why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. And we talked about the fact that I was being bullied in school. We talked about how much pain I was in and how you can't really escape the pain that you're in when it's trapped inside your body. And we talked about how I hated my body, how I felt like my body was betraying me at every time that I wanted it to behave and it wouldn't. I wanted it to look a certain way and it didn't. I wanted to be in less pain. And I wanted people to understand what I was saying when I said, it hurts. So through counseling and medication and those sort of things, and a long series of doctors, I not only was able to get my physical pain under control, but my emotional pain as well. But that's a huge part of my story. When I sit down and I'm talking to somebody who's in pain, who's experiencing chronic pain, I always remember the effect that it had on me and the effect that it still has on me. And as a result, it changed the way that I was viewing my career. When I was young, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. I wanted to help people in the same way that I had been helped physically. When I was older, I felt a calling to go into ministry. And I also felt a calling towards chaplaincy, like in a hospital, and a calling towards studying mental health. So part of my schooling, I majored in sociology and religion in college, and then got a master's in divinity and marriage and family therapy. And I've spent several years as a chaplain at a hospital, at several hospitals in Louisville and in Bardstown. And then most recently been appointed full-time to ministry at a church on my way towards ordination. I have encountered different problems at each stage of this disease, and sometimes we focus only on one. We focus on like early childhood, like till you're about 12. It seems to be a really heavy focus. And I mean, I think I stopped growing at 12. So that is it's a time when your body is changing and where the bumps are really growing fast. But in that time afterwards, it's not that we get left behind. It's that things change and how we talk about it changes too. So as an adult, I've had problems getting insurance. That, like I mentioned, I spent about 2 years without insurance, and that was a fun time. Because I was used to having all these appointments, and then I couldn't afford to, even if I was in pain, to go to the doctor, and that was not very much fun at all. And I also had different challenges, like even here at this hotel, I don't know if you all have noticed, but I've noticed the small areas where it's not accessible, where you'll encounter 4 steps, and the only way around the steps is to actually go outside. Or the handicap entrance is way down on one side of the building but not on the other. Or there's all these little tiny things that just impede people with disabilities. And that's always in my mind too as I'm going forward as an adult, is if I were in a wheelchair like I'd been in the past, I would have a very hard time navigating these different situations by myself. I also think that there's been some issues just in how I've decided to raise my family. Many of the people who are my age who have MHE, they ask the question, should they have children? Should we risk passing this disorder on? And though I've had many surgeries, I've been very lucky in my disease. I have not had any on my spine. I have not had a stroke because one of them was too close to my brainstem. I have not had epilepsy because they are in such a place where it's caused damage there. I have not had a nerve disorder happen as a result of my first surgery. When I was evaluating whether or not we were going to have Miss Ellie, and when I was entering into conversation with my husband, my view of this disorder is colored by my kind of medium experience with it, rather than the severe. With the knowledge that if Ellie were to get this disorder, that she could have it on anywhere on that spectrum. We decided to go ahead and have children. And we've even been talking about having another baby in the future. Because at the end of the day, I value being alive. I value the life that I have. I value my family. I value where I've been able to go in life. I value how much God has blessed me in other areas and how God has not made MHE all that I am. However, there are other people my age who have taken steps so that they can't have children. Because in their journey with this question, they've come to a different place. And I highly respect where they came from as well. There have been people who have had children who are around my age, and when they find out that their babies have MHE, have just broken down crying. Because this is a serious thing, to see your baby have your first surgery. And I know that many of you who are parents without the disease, that you experience that every day, of looking and seeing the effects of this disorder on our lives. And it is not an easy journey for those who have it, and it's definitely not an easy journey for those who are caregivers, who are parents, who are interacting with this disorder on a daily basis. Related to this question, though, is also a question of who we are as people with a disorder. I've had a lot of people in my life who have told me what I can and can't do. That I can't do this or I can't do that. Or I was telling somebody recently that in high school I had somebody tell me that I couldn't take an advanced placement class because I would miss too much school and I'd be too far behind. And I took that advanced placement class and I did just fine. I think that part of my journey has been learning to love and accept myself for who I am despite what's going on with my body. I think that part of my journey has been learning to be not ashamed of these scars. I think part of my journey has been learning how to wear shorts. How to go to a public pool and feel okay wearing a swimsuit. And part of my journey has been hearing my husband say, "Suck it up, buttercup." Part of my journey has been my parents urging me forward. I have found it more beneficial to listen to the people who say that I can, rather than those who say I can't.
I'm going to say amen to that. Yay.
I don't know. I'm up here telling you all about my experience. You all each have stories. You all each are on this journey yourself. And where I've come is where I've come. Where you've come is where you've come. And I celebrate each of our journeys. And I think it's wonderful that we're here. And I'm just so excited to see you all and to meet you all and to hear more about what's going on in your lives. So I made the mistake of not writing anything down and networking it in my head on what I was going to talk about. So I have run out of my internal list and am more than willing to answer any questions. Yes?
Oh, it's not really a question, but I mean, you're talking and I'm hearing it in my head, and then parts of me are saying, yes, girl, go, like that is me too. So it's just really glad that you're sharing your story. I'm really rooting for you in my head over here.
Me too.
Thank you. Yes?
This one might be tricky, so just bear with me. I don't really know
Okay.
how to phrase it. But you constantly live in pain. You've always been in it.
Yes.
I can see my son did. But when did you first officially notice? Because like toddlers, they have bad days. They have good days. It's hard to tell. But when did you notice?
My first memory is my sister and my two friends and I were in the playground, and we had decided that one of our friends should be a horse. She was not willing to be a horse, but we wanted her to be one anyway. So I jumped on her back, and the other two grabbed her arms and were running with her. And as being very young children, this seemed like an awesome idea. It was the best idea we had ever had, and it was going so well until we fell down, and I sprained my ankle. And for the longest time growing up, to me that was like the moment that I had MHE, was when I hurt my ankle and they realized that I was actually going to need to have surgery on the other ankle, I think. I don't know, but in my mind, it was like, oh, well, enter pain was this moment when we decided that my friend was actually a horse. But I mean, I had days where I couldn't sleep. And I still have days where I can't sleep because my body just doesn't feel right. That it doesn't matter how many pillows you put in certain places, it just hurts.
My mom and I are on the total other end of the spectrum. We have no pain. When we were growing up, I had a little pain when I would go through a growth spurt, but mine don't hurt at all. They don't hurt at all. I never notice them.
The only pain I've had, like I had one that was pitching a nerve in the back of my column, the pitched nerve in the back of my spinal column. Pitched nerve caused the pain, not the growth.
We used to make fun of my dad that he can't do this. So I'd go up in front of him and I'd go, look at me, I can do this. And he'd just sort of be like, ah. But he had a great sense of humor, so he would always show me things that I couldn't do. It's such a spectrum.
It's a wide disease. I mean, it goes from one end to the other. It's just weird.
Yeah, I met somebody who's only had one surgery and it was on their finger.
I've had two. One on my ankle. No, I mean one on my wrist and one on my hip. That's it.
And I mean, it's different. I've met other people who will try their hardest not to have surgery because of the side effects that they've had as a result of their surgeries, that they've gone so awry, that they're in so much more pain because of a surgery, that they don't want to have any more, even if it would fix the one that went awry, because what if that one goes awry, and then the one after that goes awry, and so forth. So, I mean, what a spectrum we have, and what different stories we have to tell. But I also, I remember asking my dad how long it was till my next surgery because my knee was hurting really bad. And I was about 11 or 12. So, I don't know. The memories of pain have kind of become foggy. I don't really notice them having as much of an impact on my life now as they did. And yes.
I have to, just to add to your story a little bit in a different perspective, is that when I was growing up, I had moments of pain. So
Yes.
stretches of pain. Like you said, your knee was bothering you, and then you had surgery, and hopefully it fixed it.
Yes.
And it did for me. But then I hit 40, and everything changed. Things hurt more often, and for no reason. Like, what did I do to get this pain? I have no idea. But now it's a constant thing. It's like constant, so it's different as we age, and it's different for everybody.
Well,
I mean,
she's 70 and hers still don't hurt.
that's awesome. I mean,
That is
God bless
wonderful.
you.
My arthritis does.
But I was surprised how much it did change. As a kid, I didn't think about it. I mean, I had, like I said, those moments, but then when I hit 40 as an adult, I'm like, oh crap.
I mean, sometimes I can't get out of a chair very easily, and the people at my church are like, "Oh, it's like you're an old woman," and I'm like, "Well, you have no idea what's going on with me right now. I'm sorry I can't get out of this chair, but I'm not faking this right now. This is where I'm at."
I never thought that I would ever have any trouble walking.
Yeah.
You know, when I was younger, I never thought that I would use a cane. I use a cane frequently, or crutches,
Yes.
or I can't get out of it.
I usually have 2 canes in my trunk of my car because just in case. And probably I should use it more than I do. But it's such a pain to answer the questions that people ask when you're walking with a cane and you don't normally. They have assumed that something catastrophic has happened in your life. And I can't, sometimes I can deal with their questions, and sometimes I'm like, no, I'm gonna deal with this. And I know there's gonna be a point where that vanity of mine is it's not gonna matter. I'm gonna walk with that cane because it's gonna help so much, and it'll feel so much better when I'm walking with it than when I'm not.
I have to say, as her mother, and in answer to your question, you asked your father, so when is my next surgery going to be? As a parent, I could almost plan every 6 months. Every 6 months, something would happen. You know, she's swimming and she severed got a foot drop with one of those things, and then there's one on each leg at different times that her leg went numb, and it was a perineal nerve, and most often it was an emergency. Okay, back to Boston. We were from Maine at the time. Back to Boston. Every 6 months, I would get scared when the 6 months was almost up. I could have like maybe 4 months, I thought, of peace, you know. Okay, you're too early. It's not 6 months yet. I need a little more time, but it was always. And when I was growing up, the disease, you didn't talk about it. Nobody knew it. Nobody knew what you were talking about anyway. And so I just ignored it as much as I could, except when I was playing as a child, and I would get down on my knees and I couldn't get up.
Yeah.
That happened all my life. I couldn't get up. Okay, you keep on going, even with my kids. You keep on going, I'll be there in a minute. I was not going to admit that I had to twist around a certain way in order to get that unhooked. But that's how far we've come. And now I have people who understand and that I can talk to, but there is nobody back then that ever understood what I was talking about. So it's really nice to have these meetings that somebody can understand you.
When my dad had his surgeries when he was young, first of all, they waited till you were in your late teens to do them. And then he would be bedbound for 7 days. unable to really do anything. And then that he would get up and he'd start moving. And it caused a lot of problems the way that they did it then. That he probably, if he had been growing up when I was, and if he was growing up now, it'd be even less. Because even my surgeries, I'd stay in the hospital 2 or 3 days or something like that. And now we know you're supposed to move more, and you're not supposed to just rest or anything like that. Just like with a knee replacement surgery, you're out of bed the same day, even though you think you shouldn't be. So I mean, things are so much better now. I know some of my scars are really kind of, I wouldn't say ugly, but they're different looking. And some of my later ones look like a tiny inch in a perfectly straight line, no stitches around it because it's all under the skin.
But back then they couldn't make a straight line.
No, they had to, my dad had one like this.
Yeah, she does mine.
And it's so different than when when my dad was growing up, than when I was growing up, and now. And I'm so thankful for that there's so much progress being made, even though sometimes it feels like there's no progress being made and things are so slow, and that there's not as much hope as we would want. But I'm always telling my church, and I don't know if this is the right setting, but I always say, we are not a people who live without hope. And it's the same with MHE, that there's always hope for advancements. That's why I'm so thankful for this trial that's happening, even though Ellie's a little bit too young for the trial, and we haven't even gotten her tested yet because insurance. So we don't even know if she has it. But if she does, I know that she'll be in a better place than I was. And a way, way better place than my dad was and where you were. Where you couldn't even really talk about what was going on, where there was no dialogue, where there was nothing that was said. For the longest time, we thought my dad was a spontaneous mutation. But then we found out that his brother was diagnosed when he was in his 40s. That means somebody down the line had this disorder and didn't talk about it.
This is kind of directed to you and your mom. When she was younger and she was in pain, you know, kids have a hard time expressing. What did she do that you could tell that she was in pain?
Amy's facial expressions always tell. Whenever she's in pain, even now, they know that she's in pain. Because she furrows her eyebrows down really, really deep. She always has done that. I think it took a long time for us to actually understand how painful things were, because her daddy never complained of pain. Do you know of any? Yeah. And his ankles were fused, his wrists were fused, because of the treatment from when he was younger that he didn't, because they just did not do things. They did his knees, but why they didn't address his ankles and his wrists, I'll never know. So I know that he had to have been in pain. So consequently, I think it took me a little while, even though I'm a nurse and I'm good at assessing pain, I think it took me a little while to realize that it was the MHE causing Amy to be in pain. I wasn't sure where it was coming from, but as I learned more and read more and researched more, I realized, you know, the severity. And Amy's tumors tend to grow as hooks or pointed. I don't know, what did you all call them? Pointed?
So Nicole Wynn, she has this picture of a tumor and she called it Mr. Pointy. and I've got it on my bookshelf. A
Yeah.
picture of it, not the actual tumor. I wish that they would let me actually keep my tumors, but alas.
But I think
kind of
facial, a child that's normally active, that isn't active, a child that is, I've not noticed, and Amy, you can correct me, I don't notice that the MHE kids, the ones that I've met and the ones that I've been around, I don't think they cry much with pain, except like post-operatively, but on a day-to-day basis, I think they're stoic. I think I am constantly amazed at how they handle what they handle. So, you know, I can't say that crying was ever necessarily something with Amy, but anytime I saw those eyebrows furrowed down, I knew something was not good. And one story, this is a bad story, I was a bad mom. Amy liked to be a little bit of a daredevil, and one time she jumped down several of our basement stairs, like jumped from like the second, like the third or fourth one down to the basement.
It was
floor.
the seventh.
The seventh, yeah.
I thought I could do it.
Yeah, to the floor and fell down. She was in pain, she was crying at that time. We bundled her up, I think it was your birthday, and we bundled her up after we waited till her birthday party was over, bundled her up, took her to the hospital. They got so involved with the tumors in her leg, they totally missed the break in her leg. So,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks, this got hit. Somehow or another, they also failed to send the x-ray to her orthopedic surgeon immediately. So somehow it wound its way to him, and he looks at it and calls me, and of course I'm a nurse at the hospital where he works. And he said, "Donna, you are a nurse. This child has had," and he always called her, you know, he treated her as if she was his precious child, her initial orthopedic surgeon. And he reamed me up one side and down the other for allowing this to happen. And Amy was just walking around like nothing, but ended up in a cast and all kinds of things. So, in answer to your question, I would say whatever your child's normal behavior is, if it becomes the opposite of their normal behavior, they're probably in pain.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, even if they're normally quiet and they become abnormally hyperactive, something is probably ruined.
Follow-up question. When your leg healed, did a tumor go on that?
Not in the same break. Not in the break area.
Because someone on the Buffalo Bone Club, that happened to them.
And they grew a tumor?
Their tibia broke, and right when it started healing, a tumor broke
Yeah.
and fused it back together.
I
So
guess that
essentially,
kind of
the
makes
tumor
sense.
fixed their leg, but it still caused pain.
Right.
So
And
I don't know if
that
it's a
is
win-win
not,
situation.
well, Amy, now, on the other hand, Amy has had tumors form, like, if she's not, I'm not talking like a bump against something, but like slammed into something. She has had a couple of tumors that grew where like she had a traumatic injury, but nothing grew on the break. But the break was down in the middle part of her leg. It wasn't in like a joint. It was down a ways. And how they missed this break, when I saw the x-ray, I saw the break. So I don't know how all of that happened. But that's one of my worst mama stories. I felt like I was traumatized over that one. But and she's also, don't ever let anybody ever tell you that a tumor cannot grow back in the same place. It happens. It just happens.
I think one of my worst experiences with a doctor was a doctor who we went and we told him what was going on. We told him about this disorder, and I tell him where I'm in pain, and he says it's growing pains. And I don't know if you all noticed. You may not have, but I didn't grow very much. I'm 5'1", and I can't say that I ever had a growth spurt, like of a noticeable. You grow 6 inches, and so I have no idea where he got growing pains from, especially since I think I was a little bit older. I don't remember how old.
That's when we went to Shriners. And are you going to tell them what your response was?
I don't remember what my response was.
She was around 7 years old. She looked at him. Her doctor that cherished her was old, and he was old, and retired, and turned us over to this doctor. And we only went to him one time, and he told this to me. He did not speak to Amy. I was always insistent that the doctor speak to Amy because it was her body. She deserved that. And he spoke to me and not to Amy as if she was not even in the room. And she essentially told him that he was an idiot and he didn't know what he was talking to, stopped her foot and walked out of the room. So this was, and I always insisted that the doctors talk to her. I felt like it was important. Even if they were using words that were too big for her, I wanted them to acknowledge her as a person and her disease, not me as a mom. It's okay if she's knocked out somewhere to talk to me, but this involves her. It doesn't, it involves me, but it's her body. It's not my body. And she always had say-so in her treatment, even from a young, well, Amy made us have say-so in her treatment. I mean, she drove a lot of what went on. I think I'm speaking correctly.
So too. Any other questions? Any other stories that are not mine that you all have experienced?
We got one over here that he remembers. So we were in Denver for a wedding, and then on our flight back, we had all this luggage, and our plane eventually got delayed because there's some Southwest computer outage. So we're standing around waiting to get our life together to come back to Louisville. Sorry, I'm not trying to pronounce it. And it's so pain, and gradually the pain's starting to come on, because you're standing in an airport for hours, it just hurts. And eventually, I'm just like, I need to get a wheelchair, I'm sorry, buddy. So, Mr. Trooper here, and I think there needs to be a lot to be said about like the partners that really step up to the plate. I mean, how many suitcases did you have to carry? Was it 5? I think it was 5.
It was about 4 and a set of golf clubs.
That sounds like Tyler. It's something Tyler would do.
It's a great time. It's a great time. But I mean, I needed a wheelchair at that point because we had to stand in line for hours. I just couldn't do it at that point. So I had to cave and get the wheelchair, and I really couldn't carry anything.
Well, with Amy, we don't even bother trying to walk her through airport. Anytime we go anywhere, she starts in a wheelchair. And we have to make her because she will stand there and go, oh no, I can do this.
And we're all like,
and the thing is in an hour or two after standing around, I get to listen to her go, it really hurts to stand. So we make her start that way. And that's the thing with her, she will go all day long Like right now, I can see the way she's standing, she's shifting her hips. That's because she's standing there and that hip hurts, so she shifts. But later on tonight, when we lay down to go to bed, she's going to be in pain. But instead of taking her time now to take care of herself, she's going to stand there and act like nothing's bothering her.
Tyler's a good husband. I appreciate him. And actually, yeah, right now both of my hips hurt, and my knees and my ankles, and for some reason this finger and the top of my foot. I don't know about this finger. Something must be going on with it. It's I read something on Facebook about how people with chronic pain talk about their pain to their doctors. And they said that it's like a house is on fire and you're talking to somebody and you're like, well, the VCR is on fire, the DVD player's on fire, and the bookshelf's on fire, but I'm really worried about the couch being on fire. I mean, it's really on fire. It's just about to burn up. And the doctor goes, but what about the bookshelf fire? I mean, I think we should address the bookshelf fire. And you're going, no, no, no. Address the couch fire. Don't worry about the bookshelf fire. It's always been on fire. We're okay with it being on fire. The couch is not always on fire, and it is on fire right now. Please pay attention. I'm saying couch, not bookshelf, couch. And I think that that's kind of how you start talking about it. Oh, well, we're really worried about your knees. Well, no, I'm worried about my shoulder right now. My shoulder is I am not able to sleep because of my shoulder. Well, what about your knees? I mean, and something else I wanted to tell you all was, like, advocate for yourself. I was very lucky to have my parents advocating for me when I was not able to, or when people wouldn't take me as seriously. But we are our own advocates in the doctor's office. Nobody knows our body the way that we do. And doctors have a lot of experience and they bring a lot of things to the table, but that doesn't mean that we're coming to them empty-handed. So.
Yeah, this is kind of going back to the flights and made me think. We had done some, I don't know what trip we were on, and I was worried about just standing in the airport and things like that for our son. So Southwest, I think, was it Southwest? I think it was Southwest we flew. I called ahead of time and said, you know, I'm worried about security in some of the airports, and, you know, MCI, Kansas City wasn't that bad, it's never that bad, but we were going through Atlanta or Florida or one of those, and they had someone who met us at the gate as soon as we got there. They do a special checkout. They'll actually take your bags in there for you, skip you to the front of the line and get you in and settled, and then get you on the plane first. And I don't know, I just wasn't aware that they would do that. I just had to do some research and find, so I don't know if you guys ever used that or not, but that's been a huge
That's what we use.
advantage.
It's amazing. It is. Oh man, and you meet some really nice people that way. Like
Well,
the
they
people
seem to
who
have
are
trained. They've been trained in it, been able to address people's disabilities and to address barriers and things. So they actually have some training, and it's not just they grab somebody and say, hey, you go take care of those people. You know, they know that's their sole job.
I remember one lady, I had to go to the bathroom and she said, do you need me to help you to your stall? And I said, no, please don't. Please, I think I can handle the walk from this chair to the bathroom by myself. Thank you, though. But yeah, it's...
I have a question about when you were younger, and perhaps if you ever had an experience where people looked at you and said, well, you don't look like you need a wheelchair, or you don't look like you need, you know, because we run into that with Brandon. He's 9, and sometimes at school, even with a t-shirt, you know,
Yes.
we're explaining the accommodations that he needs. And some people look at me like, well, he looks just fine, you know what I mean? And it doesn't bother me because I can advocate for him. But is there something that you were taught or that you would say in situations when it was just you to advocate for yourself that we can perhaps teach him, you know, when he's in those instances where people are not really understanding, well, why do you need to sit in a chair? Why can't you sit on the hardwood floor like everybody else?
The whole floor with everybody else.
You know, is that...
Yeah.
Because he's a people pleaser and he doesn't, okay.
Yeah, he has a hard time sticking up for
I'm a
himself.
people pleaser too, Brandon.
Yeah.
I I think that the issue of invisible illness is one that it affects you not only when you're young, but as an adult. So this is going to be a conversation he's going to be having for a long time. First of all, which is not very fun, but learning to say, well, you can't see what's going on in my body. What you see is not what's on the surface is not what's actually going on. Or to say, you know, I was in a Walmart and there were kids who had stolen all of the electronic wheelchairs and were running around the store. And when I said that I needed an electronic wheelchair, they said no. And I had had surgery 2 weeks before. And so I was hobbling around Walmart and not standing up for myself, not saying, you know what, no. And I was muttering to the people who were with me, well, what do they want me to do? They want me to get down on the floor and show them my stitches? Or so I think learning early to say, no, I need this, or no, this is going on, or you don't understand what's going on just by looking at me on the surface. And feeling the great joys that come from being your advocate, being the one who says, you know what, I know that you don't see it, but I'm in pain right now. I know that you're looking at me as somebody whose body is perfectly normal, but I'm hurting. I'm hurting, and you can't tell me that my hurts are not happening, because I know very well that they're happening right now. Sarah, do you have any ways of that you do?
Well, I was planning about just sharing a survey we had in Norway. It was about pain and about fatigue, because we started to see more about that. Is that how you say it? Fatigue? Fatigue, that's how you say it. I was just, yeah, fatigue. Yeah, so I was, it was a very interesting survey. It was about pain, because we have not addressed pain that much in Norway before. Mm-hmm. So we all gathered. We were around 7, how many were we there? We were 20 people with MHE, maybe, and their families. And we all sat down and took this long survey about pain, about fatigue, and the results were pretty clear and shocking. The doctors were shocked about how much pain we experienced, and they told us it was just the same amount as cancer patients and also people with arthritis. Yes. It was, we experienced the same level as pain as them. So I think that's also a very good way to kind of tell people more about how it is to be us, because people understand cancer very well. And also I don't know, that's a hard word. They understand that more than they understand our disease, because it's so rare. But you can tell them that, well, the pain we experience can be compared to cancer and, to other...
And 80% of the MO people have pain.
Yeah, 80% had severe pain or moderate pain. So it's a big problem, and I think it's time to address it and to make people understand more what it is. And also with fatigue, I don't know if you guys have talked about that a lot or have a lot of focus on it.
I don't know that we did address a lot. We did a lot with pain, but I don't know about fatigue. And
yeah, because
for instance, I'm feeling fatigued.
Yeah, you should sit down, Amy. You've done such a good job. So what we found is that down and kind of you feel lazy in many ways. You feel oh, I should push myself further, I should do more. But I think it's it's also good to hear that it's okay to be tired and to feel pain, and that's something a lot of us experience. So that was a very nice survey, because then we could gather some information and just compare it with the rest of the population and everything. And then you have some more paper on it in a way. So maybe you guys have a survey like that too. I don't know.
We did a survey. Hey, Mama.
Yeah.
We did a survey a year ago, 2 years ago. A survey on pain and also on like other diseases that run. I don't know, like I have MHE, but I also have Sjogren's syndrome. And we were trying to find out if there's like a connection between MHE and other.
Yeah, we did just like a really, really informal survey of about 100 people. And we got a lot of criticism from one of our members that was actually a statistician because we never said it was a formal survey. We were just saying, okay, let's throw this out here and see, you know, who has, like for Amy, okay, Amy has MHE, Amy has migraines, Amy has Sjogren's. Who else might have migraines and Sjogren's along with their MHE? It was a fun thing to do.
Well, we should do that together.
Well, we could.
Sorry.
Well, you could probably come from wherever it was that he was having such a hard time with us, just kind of playing with the survey. I was going to do one on pain, and he had such a violent reaction to me doing it. I have never put the other one online. It's ready to go, but I've never put it online. So,
Now let's go around.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, I'm Amy. I have MHE, Sjogren's, migraines, asthma, and supraventricular tachycardia.
I'm sorry. What's that last one?
SVT, that my heart rate's like really fast. Okay, who's next?
Have you discussed anything about when these osteochondrome is turning cancerous? Because my daughter didn't have one, and then when we come down here to Tennessee, we were from Maine, and the surgery was in Boston, and the surgeon, orthopedic, is arguing with us, no, that's not possible. That doesn't happen, you know.
I told him, and he smirked.
Well, it does. We'll get her record for you, you know. It does happen, and it's sarcoma. And so that was also an emergency. I took her, she was having one of her knees done to get rid of the numbness, and a friend said to me, she was 18, said to me, well, have you looked at her hip lately? And I said, well, no, you know, she's 18, you don't look at her, you know, unless she's complaining, as you are. So I looked at it, and I got x-rays of it, because it was huge. And so then I took the x-rays with me to Boston for her to have the surgery. And the surgeon down there, who's known her all her life, said, we can't, to her, because she's 18 by then, we can't do the knee, we have to do the hip right away. That's got to be done. And she said, no. She said, no, I'm not going to leave you with a numb leg anymore. I've had it, because she kept it for about a year. She wasn't about to go for surgery. You know how you get as a teenager. And anyway, so she would not leave without having both done. So she had both the hip and it was cancerous.
Really?
Yeah, and so they do turn occasionally.
The surgeon that because that was something we asked, because we were just diagnosed in August, and I had read that. Kind of 9-year-old, that kind of freaked me out too, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and she said that in her experience, her research of MHE and everything was that the likelihood of cancer was was less than the general population. There was a percentage of risk.
0.5%.
Yeah.
0.5%.
And she said that's,
But-
it is, but,
She did it,
yeah. Yeah, and so that there was that same,
and it can happen.
it can happen, yeah, she said it can happen, but it's just like having, I mean, the general population risk is 1 point whatever or something, and she said, so really, they haven't just as likely of a chance as anyone to develop.
But there's been more on Facebook and the MHE coalition and another one that we belong to that people have said this is certain. So it's, for us on these Facebook things, it is almost, yeah, okay. It does happen all of a sudden. Yeah, it's not in our head. We know it wasn't in our head, but to tell us that it can never happen, you know. I know the percentage, I've known it since it happened.
But never is not a word in English.
Never, that's right, yeah, no, you never have, right. So I didn't know if anybody.
In Norway, they found out that it's between 18 and 30 that develop this sarcoma. And it's like never under 18, they say.
Really?
Never, you should never say never. But it's like they say that's about 5%. Yeah.
So it's going on, because people are coming up and, oh yes.
Yeah, and you should be aware, especially aware if you are over 18. And so you shouldn't be that worried about the kids, the small kids and the youth, but it's, you never know. And some say even that the one who has less pain, they are the one who's got it.
No pain.
You know.
She had no pain.
Yeah, that's what they say. So if you have no pain, you should be extra. Yeah, you should take care of yourself and take a look. Yeah.
It's weird because they tell us to check it if you got more pain, more severe pain. They tell us that you should go and check yourself.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
I was always told to check if it's growing at a rapid rate,
Yeah.
if it's causing pain, or if it's impairing my mobility. And I mean, things may have changed since I was younger. I don't know. But the growing at a rapid rate was
And
in
that's
case.
what was happening too,
Yeah.
which I hadn't noticed.
Yeah. I think that part of the problem with having a rare disease is you're finding things out as things happen among a small population. So if it's even a small risk, people are not figuring this out until later. I don't know, but I'm not a medical professional. It's just something I've noticed, is that it's hard.
Thank you.
One of the things that I also, when I was growing up, we had a chat on the MHE page where it was like every Wednesday or something. I don't really remember when. But one day I threw out like, does anybody else with MHE have problems with anxiety or depression? And like, I got a couple of no. And then I've talked with some of the same people later, and it was yes. Of people, when people are experiencing pain, the rate of, you're more likely to experience also anxiety and depression. And with the stigma behind that, sometimes we don't want to talk about it. So I just want us to keep in mind, especially with our kids, to keep that conversation going, to make a safe place to talk about what we're feeling. So I wanted to also mention that, not related to what you were talking about, but it reminded me of that. Well, I know that if I'm in pain, a lot of you are in pain. So any other questions that we would like to ask, or should we take a break? Okay. Thank you, guys.